Let's talk about why we're here. In an hour, no one is going to master time management. I haven't done it in 30 years. But we do have time for everybody to learn one thing. And I don't know what that one thing's going to be, but you'll each take one thing out of here. And it's pretty good for the price of admission. Why is time management important? It's important because we don't have much of it. I'm going to be 66 next week, and I feel the time just floating away, so I have to get very good at managing what I have left. Dan's not in as big a trouble as I am on that score. So why do we do it? We do it because, let's have a show of hands. How many here are here because they want to reduce their stress? 1, 2 out of 3, okay, 4. How many are here because they want more time to spend with their families? Aw, okay, it's a tie. Stress, families. How many are here because they want more time to get more important things done at work? Almost everybody. Okay, that's par for the course. That's par for the course. And we're going to talk about ways that you can do that. You have a handout, and I'm going to mostly be working from this handout. And first, I want to talk about some common challenges, things that we all have. I'll spend most of my time on that. And as we go down through the time management sort of litany of what you need to learn, values and goals are important. They're a little bit touchy-feely, but they are how you decide what you're going to do with your life. And we'll move on to your highest value activities. Everyone has 2 or 3 or more, but very few people have more than 5. And your highest value activities are those things that you do in your practice that bring in the big money, or the small money, but the biggest money. It's those 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you do. And the object of time management for me and for you and for everyone is to spend as much time doing your highest value activities as you can, which means you have to figure out a way to get rid of the stuff that isn't. And we all spend far too much time doing the stuff that isn't highest value activities. We'll talk a little bit about delegation and staffing. Delegation is what I spend most of my time on when I work with clients. And there are a lot of reasons why I do that. One is that it's the #1 way that you can save time, by delegating things that you do that are not your highest value activities to someone. And that someone, the rules of economics say that a given task should be done by the person who is paid the lowest, who can still perform the task adequately, satisfactorily. When I talk to clients about delegation, there is a lot of resistance because of a lot of reasons. Comfort zone, the cost of hiring people, lots of those things. There are answers to all of those objections. Another thing that gets in the way of time management, effective time management, is failure to set priorities. And when I work with clients, one of the exercises that we do, and it's in your book, is the values exercise. And if you look at page 15, there is a list of a lot of values there. And I ask my clients, and you can do this sometime, I ask my clients to list their top 10 values from this sheet. And it's a little challenging because some of these things sound a lot alike, but I make them figure out what their top 10 values are. And then I ask them to move on to page 16 and compare them one against the other so that they come away from this exercise knowing what they value most. Now, in almost every case, the #1 value is family. But after that, it gets a little interesting. And very often, people are surprised by what they value most. And then the next thing that we do is figure out what goals you can attach to those values. Goal setting becomes relatively easy when you attach it to the values that you have established for yourself. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. To-do lists are a challenge because they take time. But you can't be organized unless you write down what you have to do. And there are a lot of ways that you can do that. Your booklet talks about some ways to do it. but there are as many ways as there are people in this room, times 10 probably. But unless you have written down what it is you have to do, you have a couple of problems, maybe 3, maybe more. One is you'll forget it. Another is that you won't get around to it. And the third is psychological or biological. You tell me which it is, because unless you've written down the stuff that's in your head, the part of your brain that handles higher reasoning cycles through it all the time, cycles through your list. I got to remember this, I got to remember this, got to remember this. You don't know it's doing it, but it's doing it. And when it does that, I'm told by people who know, it takes away processing power from the part of your brain that also is used for higher reasoning, figuring out creative things to do for your clients. So that's another reason to get it down on paper, and that's the reason I like the best, because it is a stress release technique. Blocking and tackling is another big time management issue. Blocking means setting aside time without interruptions to get your most important work done. Tackling means tackling your most important work. Inboxes, if you want to stay organized, you have to know what your inboxes are. You have to have a very specific place to put all your stuff. This is just a summary. I'll come back with more details. Office organization, for some of you it's a big problem. For some of you it's not. Those of you who say, it doesn't matter that I'm disorganized because I can find anything I want anytime I want to, just like that. Well, first, that's not true. You can't find it just like that. And second, when you walk into your office and see all that stuff, it hits you again in that part of your brain, and it raises your stress level, whether you know it or not. It happens. And then we'll talk about the Sweet 15, and I'm going to save that for last because it's the magic. So flip over the page, if you would, and let's talk about some specifics. Here's where we start talking about real time management. There are some concepts that you need to know before we go too much further. One is your task environment. Your task environment is all this stuff that comes at you all day long. And it comes at you from, it seems like, everywhere. From the postal service, from inter-office mail from your colleagues, from junk email, from good email, from your partner stopping in and saying, why don't you do this and let's talk about this, from your spouse saying to you, hey, let's go do this thing. Your kids want you to coach Little League or whatever. All these things come at you all the time. Another concept is the 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill and the next one we'll talk about, which is the next action step. Those two concepts were made famous by a great time management guru named David Allen. And those two concepts work like this. Stuff comes into your office and it lands in your inbox with any luck at all. It lands in your inbox. And when the time comes for you to go through your inbox, you pick up a piece of paper. Same thing is true of your digital inbox, but let's get physical. You pick up a piece of paper and you say one of a number of things to yourself. This applies to everybody. You're sitting in your office. This is time management. This thing is trash. I'll throw it out. Good. Congratulations. That's easy. Or this thing is going to take me a while, so I'm going to set it over here. And then you pick up another one. I'm going to have my whole talk over there in a second. Pick up another one and you say, okay, this thing is going to take a while, so I'll set it over here. And it goes in your stack. Everybody does that. Everybody does that, except people who are here. And your stack builds up. And the old stuff, there's probably stuff on fire down there from spontaneous combustion. It's been there so long with so much stuff on it. It builds up and you don't get to it. And you don't get to it. Your client calls and you dodge the call. Your client calls again, you dodge the call again. You still don't get, finally you do. Now I'd like you to turn to page 33 of your book. and look at the grid there. There are 4 quadrants, which I imagine is why they're called quadrants. On the top, there are your important things. On the bottom, there are your unimportant things. The right-hand side are the things that are not urgent. The left-hand side are the things that are urgent. You want to spend, once you identify your priorities, you want to spend as much time as you possibly can in quadrant 2, important and not urgent. Because when you're working on important things on a non-urgent basis, you do your best work. You come up with creative ideas, you do great work, your clients love you, they come back to you, and they refer more clients to you. When you're working in quadrant 1, which is important and urgent, you get sloppy. You get sloppy, you make mistakes, you hurry because the building is coming in on your head in the form of your clients. You get sloppy, and when you do sloppy work, your clients are less happy, they are less likely to come back to you, and they are much less likely to refer new clients to you. Now, how does an important matter get from not urgent to urgent? It's very mysterious. It changes because you don't do anything with it. It sits there in your stack. And you've got this stack of important things and unimportant things all mixed together, which you should change. Got this stack of important things, and you walk in your office the next day, and it's like moved over just an inch to the urgent pile. And every day you walk in, you see that stack just moving right over from the not urgent to the urgent file until it's too late and you're in trouble. So, to put it briefly, the way that you can keep things from getting in your important and urgent quadrant is to do them. And we'll talk about ways you can have more time to do them. People look at the bottom part, the unimportant part, where all your unimportant things go, and they say, well, why are there unimportant things on there anyway? And the answer is, you didn't use one word in your vocabulary, and that word is no. You didn't say no. Would you bake a cake for your son's school bake sale? You can either say yes or no. Say no. Or even better, say, well, I don't have time to do that right now. Here's $10. Put it in the fund. There are ways to say no, and I'm not going to talk about all of them now because you're attorneys. You say no to people all the time. You're good at it. Quadrant 4, unimportant things that are not urgent. The beauty of this box is anything you identify as unimportant and isn't urgent, you write it down in here and you've done it. All you have to do is just put it down on your list and you've done it. That's all you have to do with it. One of the things that people who work in time management focus on is constraints. Constraints obviously are things that get in the way, speed bumps, things that stop you from or slow you from doing what you want to do for your clients. What I'm going to say about constraints is just be mindful of them. Because if you look around your office, you've got various processes and various things that get in the way. When you identify things that get in the way, ask yourself why it's even there. Is there a way to not do it? Is there a way to go around it? Is there a way to simplify your life by simply not doing it at all? Is it no longer necessary? Have you just always done it that way? So the concept is constraints. Let me go back to where I should be right now, which is talk about the next action step and the 2-minute drill. I got into the stack thing because I was talking about the next action step. Instead of taking something out of your inbox and setting it aside, it is always better to do something. That something is called the next action step. There is always something you can do with this piece of paper that will move the project along. No matter what kind of practice you have, your competitors, and you have many, no matter what you do, your competitors are letting things stack up. That's good for you. That's causing them to have less happy clients. You don't need to do that. You can look at a thing and say, okay, what can I do to move this along? And very often it's something simple like you've got to call somebody, look up the phone number. You've got a meeting to schedule, dig out the file to get ready for that meeting so it's there when you want it. You've got a big project to do. Okay, the next action step might be to plan it a little bit. That is the next action step. It goes hand in hand with the 2-minute drill. Take these next action steps with the stuff you take out of your inbox and spend 2 minutes on them. If it's trash, you can throw it out and you're 2 minutes ahead. But anything else, give it 2 minutes, because 2 minutes is about the right amount of time to devote to something to move the project or task or whatever it is along so that it doesn't stack up. It may be that if there's a big project, you should take 2 minutes to plan it. Or maybe you look at it and say, I've got to delegate that to somebody. Take 2 minutes to delegate it to that person. Or it's something that you have to work on yourself, but you don't have time right now. Get out your calendar, your schedule, and make an appointment with yourself to spend a half an hour doing this thing. But it's always important to take the next action step, because you will get more clients that way. I know exactly how many more you'll get, but you have to read my book in order to find that out. So you'll get more clients that way, and your competitors won't. That's the next action step, and that's the end of the concepts. Let's talk about some common challenges. Common challenges are on your list: having no goals or poorly defined goals. You can have goals if you know what your values are. Because when you go through the exercise of identifying your top 10 values, you know that you should do something to live those values, to achieve success in those areas. If one of your goals is to be a better parent, there are some actual things that you can do, and you know this, I'm not telling you anything, some actual things that you can do to be a better parent. And so family is a top goal, being a better parent is a top value. Sit down, think about some goals that you can attach to that value. Because unless you do that, it's just abstract. It's just in your head, I'm going to be a better parent, and I'll do it when I see it. Now, with some things you can do that. But it's much more effective, and we're talking about being effective here, if you sit down and identify some goals. Get more clients. Sit down and identify some goals. How many clients? By when do I want them? What kind of clients? There is a lot that's been written about how to set great goals. One of the things that I like, there's a very simple explanation on ehow.com, E-H-O-W. And go there and look for SMART goal setting. SMART stands for goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. That is, you give yourself a deadline. We could talk about setting goals for a long time, but we're not going to. So once you've identified your values, you know you want to achieve certain things, sit down and write out some goals for yourself to do that. Now, you're thinking, and probably have been thinking, when am I going to find the time to do this? Because I'm already too busy. Well, time management takes some discipline. What I'm giving you is techniques and tools to do it. You have to use your own discipline, and there are some easier ways to go about it. But you have to use your own discipline to become better time managers, become better managers of your work and your schedule. Poor prioritization is another common problem with time management. Doing unimportant things rather than important things because you don't know the difference. Well, now you have a tool. You have my patented prioritization tool, and it's the list of values that we've already talked about. If you do the values exercise in your book, and I encourage you to do it because this is real, your life, you do this values exercise, you know what your priorities are. Never have to question it again. Because anything that you do for your number one value, that's your number one priority. Families, if that's your number one value, then any goals attached to that are your number one priority goals, and so on down the list. Now, there are ties. You may have several goals attached to a certain priority, and the way that you determine which task to work on next is you use your instinct. There is no substitute for your brain telling you, okay, I think I should work on this one next because it seems more important to me. Simplistic, but it's the way it's done. Do we have any questions yet on anything we've covered, which has been a ton? Yes. Liar! Liar! You do have enough time.
I would be an ethics, but how do you break that logic?
Okay, we'll skip right to the end. We'll go right to my big finish, and then we'll figure out something else out for the end. Time management. Time management is about time. That is, it's about taking the time to do it. If you set aside 15 minutes to go through the different techniques that are outlined in your booklet, you set aside 15 minutes a day, and some days it might take 5, and some days it might take a half an hour. Depends. Some days you might skip it altogether. I do. If you set aside 15 minutes a day, you will be a successful time manager. Your schedule will be under control. Your priorities will be under control. You will know what's supposed to be on your to-do lists and when you should do them. Your stress will go down, and you'll make more money, and you'll be happier. 15 minutes a day. If you take 15 minutes a day. If you don't take 15 minutes a day, we might as well go home, because you will fail. You cannot successfully manage your time, your workflow, and your life unless you devote just a minimum amount of time to doing it. And that's, for me, it's 15 minutes a day. Yeah.
Is there an easy way to incentivize other people in your organization to follow suit?
You could fire them. You said an easy way. They have to have the discipline to do it, the personal discipline, and that either needs to come from showing them how much more productive they could be. Time management comes down to making more money. If you're good time managers, you'll make more money. And them too. You know, not maybe at the lowest level, the admin level. But there are a lot of things you can do to bring them into the team. In fact, I don't like teaching time management to one of you guys alone. I like to teach it to you and your principal assistant, because then you have an accountability partner. You have 2 heads, which are better than 1, and your assistant, you bring your assistant into the process and make him or her feel important. It works. It works. Don't try to do don't try this at home by yourself. It takes 2 to do this. That's all the answer you're getting. Okay, fine. Anything else? Yes. Right.
And it can't
Absolutely.
be 2 places at once.
Right. You're right. Those are two big problems, and they're competing values, because, which is why I have 2 competing books here. One is on managing time, and the other is on creating the remarkable client experience. You have to strike a balance between the 2. Here's the way that you handle the interruptions generally, because interruptions are the biggest problem that all my clients have. How do I stop the interruptions? Well, people treat you, including your staff, your partners, your clients, people treat you the way you teach them to treat you. And if you teach them that it's okay to interrupt you, they will, because it's okay. If you teach them that it's not, then they won't. Now, how do you teach them? You say, I'm going to take an hour in the morning, and I don't want any interruptions. Hold my calls. I'm not going to look at my emails. My door is going to be closed. Don't come in. And it might take 3 tries. It might take 5 tries. I don't know. But you teach them that you have to have time to do your important quadrant 2 stuff. Now, if you have a red-hot potential client who comes in, I would go with that any day. And you can worry about getting your work done in the afternoon. But interruptions are the bane of most of our existence, and we have to learn to deal with them. Ways like, don't look at your mail when it comes in. You're going to be blocking out an hour. You take that hour and you do your work, and then the mail is going to still be there at the end of the hour. Email is still going to be there at the end of the hour. That client who wants a call back, you can call them back at the end of the hour. But you have to have the discipline, and you have to train your principal assistant to work with you to protect your blocked time. There are exceptions, but mostly there are not exceptions. So when it comes to getting your work done, your important, non-urgent work, you can get it done by blocking your time. That's another time management technique. But yeah, interruptions are a big deal. I spend a lot of time working with people on interruptions. If you get your principal assistant on your side helping you, then it's less trouble, because he or she can be a good blocker for you. Procrastination. I'm tempted to say let's put off talking about it, but I won't say that. People procrastinate, and I think everyone does. People procrastinate for two reasons. One, the thing that they have to do is just too boring. I mean, I've got stuff to do. This is not one of those things. But I have things that are very boring, and it's like, oh, God, I don't want to do this. I'd rather, play solitaire. The other reason is because the thing that they have to do is scary. It's scary because something bad might happen when you do it. It's scary because you've never seen this before and you don't know how to do it. It's scary because your client is really important and your boss or your partners will kick you in the head if you mess it up. But for whatever reason it is, or it's scary because you might succeed. And that's like, oddly enough, people's heads have trouble with that fear of success. You've all heard of it. Some of you even have it. Procrastination. The things that are boring, if they are high priority, well, you have to do them. They will be less boring if you can break them up into pieces. Figure out go at this thing any way you want. Typically there's some kind of order in which to do it, but not always. But just break it up into pieces so you won't be bored all morning. You'll only be bored for a half an hour. And then reward yourself by letting yourself do something fun, like looking out the window or doing something on your phone. If something is boring, break it up into pieces. But not doing it won't make it any less important or any less boring, so you have to do it, but break it up into pieces. There are other techniques. If you go on the web machine and you type in procrastination, it's like your windows and doors will open and all kinds of crap will flood in on you. So if you want to know more about how to beat procrastination, you can wait for the book that I'm doing on it, but you don't have to. You can just go search and you'll find all kinds of resources. Something that's scary is like something that's boring. It's no less important because it's scary. You still have to do it, but it's going to be better if you think about the consequences and think, okay, what could I do here that could go wrong? And then compare that to the consequence of not doing it at all, which is always worse, almost always worse. So if you compare what might go wrong to what certainly will go wrong if you don't do it, that's a nice conversation to have with yourself. And as I said, you want to learn more about procrastination, go online right now, don't wait. Questions about procrastination? We all do it. Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's filled with procrastination? I mean, have you ever heard someone say that?
I hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. And then I did some research on it, and I found those same scientists that talk about, your head, how it works. And they say, that's not true. That's one of the coping techniques that people have about procrastinating. Well, I can wait because when I'm under pressure, I'm really good. No, you're not. You're worse when you're under pressure. You saw the quadrant. When you're under pressure, you're worse. Science says so. Are you like a physicist or anything?
No.
Okay, good. So you lose. Science wins. You lose. So that is one of the coping mechanisms, one of the things people tell themselves, but it isn't true. You're lying to yourself. Anything else? Yes.
I think a lot of people, in terms of trying to set up this plan, how do people do it? Do you recommend they start by, it sounds like a simple question for people.
In terms of mastering time management?
Yeah.
What I found works is going through the exercise in the order that I've laid them out. My book has a slightly different order because it's newer than this, but it doesn't matter that much. If you go through the exercises, start with values, move on to goals, move on to highest value activities, move on to delegation, you'll gain something at every level. If you only go to 2 levels, fine, it's better than you were at it before. You know, I'm not a perfect time manager by any means. You should see my office. It's pristine. But go through the exercises in order, because when I sat down and wrote this book, I didn't do it because the world needed another book on time management. The world needs a lot of stuff, but this is not one of them. But my clients who had read a bunch of time management stuff, and Lord knows I have, didn't have a system, couldn't simplify it enough to make it work for them. And so I wrote this book to do that, because am I the world's leading expert in time management? Sorry, no. But I'm good at creating systems. I learned it when I was a young pup at Gannett, attorney and executive. And I couldn't have survived. He read the list of stuff that I did at Gannett. Your sister actually did most of it. The stuff I did at Gannett, the stuff I was responsible for, is not because I'm any great genius. It's because I knew how to delegate and had great people to delegate to, which is one of the precursors of delegation. So go through the list, go through the exercises, and again, if you take that 15 minutes almost every day to do what this says, you will be so much better than your competitors. You will have clients who just think you're even more wonderful than they do already. And if you don't take that 15 minutes, you'll fail. Simple as that. You know, I'd like to give you some guaranteed method. The only guaranteed method I have for you is here are some techniques that can work for professionals, because I wrote what I wrote for professionals and I coach professionals, mostly attorneys. But there is no guarantee except you taking the time to do it. 15 minutes. That's all it takes. Use the techniques. Back to interruptions. We were doing this and then we got interrupted by me asking for questions. Back to interruptions. You have interruptions like people walk in your office. Teach them not to do that. Different firms have different environments. I work with a lot of people who are in open door policy environments. And I say to my client, don't do that. Don't do that. Close your door. I don't care what your partners say. You can close your door for an hour. And that's all I'm talking about. The time that you're blocking, close your door. You know, everybody likes having an open door policy, and I did at some points in my career because it's democratic. It's like, I'm no more important than you. I don't want to shut anybody out. It's very democratic. It's stupid. It's stupid. When you're blocking your time, close your door. I used to have a sign that I would hang on my closed door that said, in surgery. You know, so anybody interrupt a doctor when he's in surgery, other than maybe a stockbroker or girlfriend? I don't know who does it. Not mine. No, they don't do that. Don't answer your phone all the damn time. Back to the doctor analogy. You call your doctor's office, you expect to get your doctor on the phone? No. If you got your doctor on the phone, you'd wonder what was going wrong, and you'd probably change doctors. You're every bit as important as they are. When you're blocking your time, don't answer your phone. Your assistant can be very good at saying, he's working on an important project, he's finishing up with a client, he's doing or she's doing whatever she's doing, she will call you back at 10 or 11 or whatever. And then, of course, you have to do that. Don't answer your phone when you blocked your time. Don't look at your email. Ooh, that's a tempting one, though. I have trouble with that one. I was like, if there's a new client coming in here, I want to see it. But no, use some discipline. Don't look at your email. Almost everything that interrupts you, you can control. You just have to be a little bit more firm about it, a little less maybe democratic about it. And you have to balance always managing your time against your client relationships. But if you maintain a good culture of communication with your clients and call them back early enough and often enough, they're not going to gripe if they can't get you on the phone. Most of them won't. Maybe there's somebody who's like, you should answer their call. But not most of them. So that's interruptions. Just deal with it. Just deal with it. It's up to you. I touched on your office and your workspace just a little bit. And I just want to leave you again with the thought, if your office is a dump, I'm sorry, if your office is disorganized, don't ever let your clients see it. Don't ever take your clients in there because they'll think you're a doofus. You know, if this person can't organize his office like I keep my kitchen or my office organized, well, what good is that? How can they have any brains? Don't let your clients see it. And the trickier thing, don't let yourself see it either. Because when you look at it, there's like this static starts going around in your head. Oh God, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. I should put that away. It's like whatever's out there is making your head all staticky. That's a medical term. All staticky. So if you can organize your office, do it. And here's how you do it. Make a list of what you're going to move out of your office. The first thing on your list should always be get some place to move it to. It's always a roadblock. Almost always. No place to move this stuff. Well, figure it out. Send it off-site. And then start on your list with the things that are least useful to you. You don't need them right now. You won't need them for a year. Get them out of there. And so you should be left in your office with just the things that are on your project list, that you can do, that you can store in your office behind closed doors. Even inside boxes is tough. I know there are probably litigators in here. I'm sorry about your lifestyle. But you got to work on cleaning up your office for your own mental well-being. Questions on office organization? I know nobody can do it, but yeah, you can. Just do one thing at a time. You got 15 minutes. Write down, dear secretary, move my thing out to the whatchamajigger place. And then you've taken care of one thing in your 15 minutes. You don't have to do it again. It's gone. Get the idea? Okay, good. Again, it's tough. It's tough because lawyers, like so many other people, like to look important. And it's easier to look important if your office is full of stuff. It's like, look at this. Look at all the stuff I got. Like, I'm important. I don't want to move any of this out of here. Well, yeah, okay, fine. Deal with it. Failure to create systems. Creating systems is difficult because it requires thought. There are so many, and here's what a system is. It's a form or a check sheet, checklist, with a set of instructions and somebody who is trained to use the system. That's a system. Form or checklist, instructions, and a person who's trained. A system is no more than really effective delegation. Start easily. Start by, as this says, as your book says, think of the things you'd like to make systems out of. And okay, that's one day. The next day, during your 15 minutes, list the major steps of this system. 5, 6, 7 steps, whatever they are. Next day, come back and list the documents that go along with it. It's like you can do this in 30 seconds a day. Just make it a habit to create systems, and then you never have to do that thing again. It's like off your list forever. And your assistant hardly has to do it. You can bring somebody in, there's buses down there. Bring somebody in from a bus. Read the instructions. Here's what you do. You do this. Okay. Enough about failure to create systems. It takes time, but in time management, so does everything else. How about a show of hands of everyone here who thinks they are a good delegator? 1, do. What makes you a good delegator?
Just the experience of having attempted to do it for a long period of time,
Mhm.
and having employed lots of people.
Okay. And what makes some of you not so good delegators? Anybody got anything for me? How about this one? You could do it faster yourself. I hate that. One of the occupational hazards of my job is you have to hear that all the time. I can do it faster myself. The answer is no, you can't. You can never do it faster yourself. When you train someone, and it might take one time of training them, it might take 2 times or 3 times or 4 times, but when you invest that time, all of a sudden you don't have to do it at all. How's that for doing it faster yourself? But the excuse of I could do it faster myself is just you're lying to yourself. Another excuse is I don't have anybody who's capable of doing it. Well, really? Have you tried? Have you tried to explain it to somebody? And if they're incapable of doing it, something that should be part of their job, give them some time to find a new job and get somebody who's capable of doing it. Because if you have a team of people who are incapable of doing what you need them to do, it's your fault. I'm sounding very upset with you. I'm not really. It's just that it's your fault if you don't hire the right people. Delegation, something else. Let's see. I don't want to forget this one. I don't have anybody. I can't afford to hire a clerical person. I love that one because I can always prove it wrong. And when I go into a law practice or any other kind of practice, my objective is to try to break the system. And I try to break the system like this. I say to the top dogs, you guys, I want you to delegate everything that's not one of your highest value activities. And then you say, but my assistant doesn't have time to do it. What, so you're going to do it? No. He or she will figure it out because they'll have to delegate something to the lowest person on the totem pole, however many layers you have. And it always gets down to the point where the system breaks because everybody's going, I don't have time to do this. And then we start making lists of all the things that they don't have time to do. Some of them are unnecessary. You can throw them out. But those lists will show you that, yes, indeed, you do have enough resources. It will pay you to hire a clerical person because it frees this person to do better stuff, and then this person to do better stuff, and you. There is a process for figuring it out, and if you go through the process almost every time, you'll see that it works. So the excuse that I don't have anybody, well, maybe not now, but you can get somebody. Questions about delegation? That's a tough one. As I think I said, I spend most of my time with my clients working on delegation because it's so important. I want to go back to the sweet 15 minutes again. I've discussed it twice. I want to discuss it another time. Do any of you feel that you don't have the discipline to carve out 15 minutes during your day to organize your life? Anybody lack the discipline? Does anyone have another reason why you might not be able to do it?
It's not billable.
No, it's not billable, but there is that's exactly right. I got more important things to do. I was like, oh, it's not billable. Well, I'll tell you what, if you take that 15 minutes, you will end up with better work, more timely work, happier clients, more better clients, and if you don't, you will fail more than you might. So yeah, it's not billable. It isn't billable. But it sure pays. The return on the investment of those 15 minutes sure pays. Now we're going to have time for questions. I want to do 1 minute of shameless self-promotion. If you look at the back sheet of this, you'll see various resources that I have that can help in time management. Just look through that. I'd be happy to help you any way that I can. On your way out, there are the 3 books that I've written. Pick one up. One is this stuff. It's managing time, and it's more than I could possibly give you in an hour. Another one is landing referrals. If you have anybody who has difficulty asking for referrals, or landing better referrals. That's what this one was about. Those two I wrote because I had clients who almost demanded it. And then the third one is creating the remarkable client experience. Other industries are getting really good and spending a lot of money on the value of creating a remarkable client experience. Nobody asked me to write this. I wrote it because the professions, like lawyers, aren't thinking about this much. So it's something to think about. My website is Tom Chapple, TOMCHAPPLE.com, and it's on the bottom of your sheet here. There's other stuff there that can help you. Now, let me summarize time management. You all can do it. The important things to remember are, start with your values. Because if you haven't decided what your values are, that's the biggest time waster of all. Because if your value is spending more time with your family, you hardly have to write that one down, but let's use that one. Spending more time with your family, and you're over here doing this, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life. So do the values exercise. When my clients do this, they're always surprised. They're always surprised by the outcome. There are always some things in there that aren't what they thought they were. So it's interesting to do. Know your values. Setting goals is not difficult. But you know what it takes? It takes time. That's up to you. Understanding your highest value activities, you could do that on the way to the elevator. And then delegating, we talked about that. We didn't spend much time on to-do lists other than the fact that if you don't write it down, it's not real. You've got to get it out of your head. Your booklet here talks about ways to do it. Get your to-dos out of your head and down on paper, including the ones that don't come at you from someplace else, that just come at you from right up here. You know, I think it would be great fun for me to do this. Well, don't leave it up here. Put it down there so you can get it in your system. So during your 15 minutes one of these days, you can say, oh yeah, I should work on that. That's a good idea. To-do list, and then take your time. Take those 15 minutes. Questions on time management. It's a tough subject, yes.
If you had one thing to teach them about time management,
I'd say do the values exercise. Know what your values are. Because if your value is to save the environment and you're working for Exxon, you got a problem. I would always start with the values exercise. And I go back and do it myself because they change over time. Anything else? Yeah. How is it that people treat you? People treat you the way you teach them to treat you. How can you teach them not to do that? You mean they send you an email and they expect an immediate answer?
Well, you get the...
I would say this. Finishing important project, get back to you at 11.
I've started.
I hope it works. How's it going? That's right.
It's working.
Good. Yeah. Remember, they'll treat you how you teach them to treat you. Don't teach them to think you're free, that your time belongs to them.
So by dumb luck...
Thank you for letting me holler at you. I mean, that's one of the highlights of my job, being able to holler at really intelligent people and say, use your head, you know, just do it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here.